So we are Zochat, continue our learning in Mishkanot Sha'ananim. We are learning, as always, Menucha of Sir Moses Montefiore and Surname Dangur. Oh, Shkoyach, you made it. Surname Dangur. I was also requested Abigail Weissglass. Abigail Weissglass, it's her father's yard side, that's why she's not with us. But we will also be learning Le'ilui Nishmat Rabbi Yaakov ben Elchanan David, her father, who it's his yard site right now. We were talking about the Rambam. In the Rambam, broadly speaking, the Rambam, when it comes to Shmita, does the Rambam think that Shmitat Karka is contingent on Yovel or not? There are two ways of reading the Rambam. We said in Per Gimel, the Rambam talks about the Sevet Shvit, and Per Gdal, the Rambam says Shmitat Karka does not depend on Mikdash, as opposed to Sevet, which does. Does that mean Shmitat Karka does not depend on anything else? Unclear. Per Tet is where the Rambam says Shmitat Kesefim is contingent on Yovel. And Perek Yud, the Rambam seems to say that they're both contingent on Yovel. It depends on how to read the Rambam in Perek Yud. So as we said, Rav Kanievsky says that only Shmitat Kesefim is contingent on Yovel, and according to the Rambam, nowadays Shmitat Karka is Doraita. So Rav Kanievsky, the Marikurkus, says that brings another Gursa in the Rambam, makes it more extreme, it's on page 14, and says that nowadays everything is Drabanan. Everything is Drabanan. Shmitat Karka, Kesefim is all Drabanan as long as you don't have Yovel. Now, why did I not cite the Kesef Mishne? The Kesef Mishne is a very interesting story. So on the one hand, you see the Kesef Mishne over here on page 14. Ma shekatav chutz mishvit ba'aretz lo kai el shmitat kesefim. Shvit ba'aretz af b'zman hazeh min haTorah, according to the Rambam. Consider it in the Kesef Mishne. But skip over to another Achron who's very, very important on page 15. An Achron, I don't know if you're very familiar with him. I want to skip over to the Shut of Katoruchel. If you know who the Shut of Katoruchel is, please don't interject and say who he is. The Shut of Katoruchel, Tav Baal Haga, b'mashu asur min haTorah, mipnei Shabbat ha'aretz v'kedushata lo hufka b'kinyan hagoy, u'miyusad ששבת הארץ וקדושתה מן התורה בזמן הזה, וזה אינו. כתב הרמב"ם, שמיטת קרקע בזמן שאין יובל נוהג, אינו לו מדבריהם. I'm skipping to the end. כיוון שנתברר שדעת הרמב"ם שאינם אלא מדרבנן, אין כאן תמיהה. Okay? So the Avkat Ochel, what does he think about the Rambam? That Shmita nowadays is? Sorry? Drabanan, very clearly, he says it twice, right? For him, Drabanan, whichever language you want to speak, is very clear. According to Avkat Rochel, Shmitat Kesefim nowadays is Drabanan. Very, very clear according to Avkat Rochel. Okay, now let's go to another very important Achron, the Beit Yosef. B'shviti Shmita, the Beit Yosef is right before the Avkat Rochel, page 15. B'shviti Shmita, so b'chalishan zriya kol adat karka b'Eretz Yisrael idna midrabanan. Okay, now that could be just his opinion, not the Rambam's. Like a sholach, along Shvit Mesharet b'zman zim drabanan, mashmatan and ben shmitat karka ben shmitat kesefim, because the context in Gittin Lamidvav is only shmitat kesefim. But Yosef makes it clear, not only shmitat kesefim, also shmitat karka. גם בירושלמי מייטי מקרא שאין שמיטה נוהגת אלא בזמן שיובל נוהג. כמו דאורייתא אינה נוהגת, אבל מדרבנן נהגה, meaning, he makes it very clear. So Bavli and Yerushalmi both agree. Both Shmitat Karka and Shmitat Kesefim are both Drabanan, right? Also according to the Rambam, Kachem Divrei Rambam, right? ולא כתניא דסר שביעית נוהגת אף על פי שאין יובל נוהג. So the Rambam holds regarding Shmitat Kesefim and Shmitat Karka that they're Drabanan. So we had three very important Achronim. Who are the last three Achronim I cited? This is the test. Beit Yosef.
The Avkat Rochel, I don't remember the other.
And the Kesef Mishne.
Oh, right.
Now, what's interesting about that one? Correct. And the Avkat Rochel is also the Rav Yosef Kar. So Rav Yosef Kar wrote all three books. Avkat Rochel is his shoot, Beit Yosef is his book on the tour, and Kesef Mishne is his book on the Rambam. Right? So at least the Beit Yosef and Avkat Rochel don't have machloket, but the Kesef Mishne. Now it's a bigger problem because the Kesef Mishne, his main goal is talking about the Rambam. It's true that in many cases, Kesef Mishne maybe copies over. I'm not sure if that's be correct, but adds many other Rishonim. When he discusses the Rambam, he says, by the way, the Rishonim disagree, and sometimes you can see that word for word, but he has the Kesef Mishne and the Beit Yosef are very, very similar in many cases. In the case, not only are they not similar, they're in direct contrast, right, to each other, right? A complete contradiction. Now, but which one should we follow when you want to define what does the Rambam hold, right? Presumably, on the one hand, you'd say, well, we could go 2 out of 3, right? So you go 2 out of 3, Beit Yosef and Avkat Rochel against the Kesef Mishne. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is Avkat Rochel is the most authoritative because the Avkat Rochel is the most halacha l'maisa. Kesef Mishne and Beit Yosef, they were preparing you for halacha, right? Usually, he'll also, in Beit Yosef at least, he'll usually write this psak, right? But that's not the goal of the book. The goal of the book is to give you the lay of the land, to help you understand what's going on here, the halacha. The Avkat Rochel is a shoot. He wants to tell you what to do. Now, in this context, he isn't telling you what to do. It's part of a build-up he has in the tshuva. But he wants to tell you what the Rambam holds in this specific paragraph. But still, it would seem that the halacha book would be the one that would be more, that we take more authoritative, right? On the other hand, when we want to define what the Rambam thinks, we should read the book that's on the Rambam, right? So that's a big problem. Let's just have a quick look at whatever. There's endless mechker about this. I just thought it's a fun point, so I brought it. So there's another machloket achronim. What is the Beit Yosef thing that the Rambam thinks? A bit nitty gritty for my my specific proclivities, but beseder. Let's have a look on page 16. Rav Zilber writes, "Hadavar mistaber meod, ki besof yamav chazar bo Maran mima shekatav, mima shenakad b'sharat Avkat Rochel b'dat Rambam, mima shekatav Beit Yosef, because he has a Kabbalah. The Kesef Mishne was written last." So he writes there are 2 reasons to follow the Kesef Mishne. First of all, it's the book on the Rambam, and second, the book he wrote last. So it's always best to go by what he wrote last, because why would he change what he wrote before? Because he thought he was wrong. So that's needed to be over there. And Rav Ovadia disagrees. בסוף נדברו השיג שהכל יודעים שהבית יוסף קדם לכסף משנה. זה המחבר הנ"ל מה שהכל יודעים. בעד מלאכיס, דחמת שזה פשוט כלל, שהרי מרן בית יוסף מזכיר את אשר כתב בחיבורו על הרמב"ם. In the Kesef Mishne, the Beit Yosef writes, as I wrote in my book on the Rambam. What book on the Rambam? Kesef Mishne, of course. Now, it's not me'achuz because we know that he did later add parts to the Kesef Mishne from the Beit Yosef. How do we know? It's very easy just in terms of the logic. In the Kesef Mishne doesn't have to write too much about what the other Rishonim think. He's analyzing the Rambam, right? He's analyzing the Rambam, and he wants to give you a broader understanding, and he'll say, well, and by the way, the Tosfot disagree, whatever. But you won't go very deeply into analysis of other Rishonim. Sometimes the Kesef Mishne he does, and when he does, you can look at the Beit Yosef and you'll see it's word for word, or very, very close to it. So it only stands to reason that he first wrote the Beit Yosef. He wrote the Kesef Mishne, then wrote the Beit Yosef, and then copied parts over from the Beit Yosef to the Kesef Mishne, meaning he revised the Kesef Mishne. So based why? I'll tell you why. It's not very plausible. In the Beit Yosef, no. So we know he wrote the Kesef Mishne in the Beit Yosef, and then he copied things over back from the Beit Yosef to the Kesef Mishne. Why not assume that he just copied from the Beit Yosef to the Kesef Mishne to the Beit Yosef? Because the Kesef Mishne should always start from the Rambam. It doesn't really make sense to start from other Rishonim or to analyze. See what I'm saying? To analyze in depth what Tosfot think if you're just explaining the Rambam. Most of the Kesef Mishne doesn't do that. Why?
Afterwards, it doesn't make sense.
It's a good question. Why? When does he choose? It's a good question. I hear it's a good question. When does he choose to do that? He did it consistently. We one thing he doesn't do it consistently. Why not? But fair point. I don't know, but so the Rav Ovadia says that we know the Kesef Mishne was written first. How do we know? Because in the Beit Yosef he writes, as I wrote in my book on the Rambam. So he refers to his own book on the Rambam. Must have existed before, right? Moreover, says Rav Ovadia, al kol panim, Beit Yosef ikar mishum denachid halacha yoter. The Beit Yosef, the goal of the Beit Yosef is to tell you halacha. Now, that's of course a double-edged sword, right? Because the goal of the Kesef Mishne is to explain the Rambam. So, right? In other words, our goal here isn't the halacha. Our goal here is explaining the Rambam. So, what's more authoritative? You see what I'm saying? All right. Beseder. You see the last part, the last two lines here. He copies over exactly that. Kesef Mishne u'pirush l'divrei Rambam ve'eino l'psak halacha, ma'ashen kan shulchan aruch shu psak halacha. And therefore, when it comes to halacha, you should follow the Beit Yosef. When it comes to explaining the Rambam, who should you follow? The Kesef Mishne, right? Our question is not yet what should we do in halacha. Our question right now is, what does the Rambam think? On the other hand, if you'll decide that the Rambam,
Maybe you think that the Beit Yosef holds anyway like the Rambam.
right? So that's exactly that would be the difficulty. So beseder, lemaise, as we said, it's a sveka, right? Because we're not sure what Rav Yosef Karo thought. We do know what the Mari Krokus thought. We do know what Rav Kook thought, right? So we saw last time. So